Well, 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 Vish. Nottingham Forest 1, Crystal Palace 0. Forest finally are up and running at home in the Premier League this season. At the same points as Spurs and just 1 point behind Chelsea. How about that, Vish?
Well, I mean, it's exceptional, and they've done it, despite the fact that they still need to sack Nuno for our pre-season predictions.
You, Jim, and I have gone for him to be the first manager sacked.
It's amazing what they've been able to do. Despite being led by such incompetence, really.
We should stop reminding everybody of that prediction.
I think it plays into the fact that they have been quite surprising, not least because of how things ended with Nuno at the helm at the end of last season, and they just seem a bit more robust. You know, we spoke about it before, that they feel part of the furniture now, don't they?
Yeah.
And in part, that's because they've got, a talented squad with players who do a bit of everything, really. I appreciate this game wasn't necessarily about him per se, but I look at someone like Ryan Yates, who, when he started, was clearly thinking, right, I don't know if I'm good enough for this standard, so I'm just going to half everyone.
Yeah,
I'm just going to clatter into anything that moves.
He loves it, doesn't he?
And now there's a bit more craft about him, and there's a bit more craft about, even the functional, gritty things that they do. They, what they did tonight in particular? They play like Palace did last season.
Yeah.
They were very quick on the break. They were slick, and I suppose we'll get onto Palace a bit later, but they were, in what was by and large a pretty meh game, certainly the first half. A lot of the bright spots were because of things that Forest did.
And the Forest, when they went 1-0 up, they didn't look like they were going to lose the game at all. And on the balance of play, you would say they were worthy winners. It's interesting what you say about Ryan Yates. I mean, he's really making a name for himself this season in particular to fans of other teams. So who's that bloke who's like slagging off all our players and getting all mouthy and just winding everybody up? I mean, at Anfield, when they got that famous win at Liverpool, of course, he was just in the thick of it. They were booing him, and so it was great. But yeah, so as you say, there's quite a lot of diversity in the squad in terms of the options that they have on the bench and in there. But Nuno, of course, wasn't the one who was allowed to make substitutions and whatnot, because he was sat in the stands behind some very shady glass, if I may say, after he was given a touchline ban for his sending off against Brighton last month. And the thing is, Vish, we'll get on to Marinakis in a bit, but he's had his stadium ban. Nuno was up with the stand. There's still the chaos there at Forest, but on the pitch, they've got it sorted. So I suppose, all things considered, the fans are going to be happy with that.
What is more chaotic at Nottingham Forest, though, right now? Yeah. Is it Marinakis? Is it Nuno?
Yes.
Or is it Chris Wood playing, as someone put it on Twitter, now known as X, is it Chris Wood playing like prime Christian Vieri?
That's a hell of a... Well, hang on. If he was playing like prime Christian Vieri, he would have scored 3 against Palace, wouldn't he?
And an important point to make is Christian Vieri didn't have much of a right foot, and that volley today was with Chris Wood's right foot, so fair enough.
The Kiwi Christian Vieri, who himself, of course, is part Aussie.
Yeah, Christian Vieri isn't Aussie, is he? Sorry, Christian Vieri is Aussie. He's not Kiwi, is he?
No, I know, but I'm just saying that...
I see. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Kiwis are from New Zealand. You should know that with all your cricket stuff.
I do. Yeah. They've had a bloody brilliant 72 hours. But I suppose that, that's the equivalent of saying we've got Christian Vieri at home. We've got a Kiwi version of that Australian-Italian striker.
Yeah, it is a bit of a mouthful. So perhaps it's why they don't sing it. I don't know. I mean, Chris Wood was involved in a few chances in the first half, of course, where Forest looked like the more likely. Because with Palace, they do look a little bit toothless up front, but they can hit them from range. And Eberechi Eze, I mean, there was a few minutes in the second half where he hit a shot and Sells made a fantastic save, and then he lined up another one. I thought, if the dynamic of this game goes that we just see Eze hitting shots from 25 yards, I'm all for it. It didn't kind of work out like that, but we did get a goal from 25 yards. But in the first half, though, it was 0-0. But it was would I use the word pulsating? It was an entertaining 0-0.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think what I found kind of sad, and it's probably the thing that you know, as you've explained there, you found quite exciting, but I'm very much an Eze stan. He can do whatever he wants. If he wants to have more shots, young man. But did it not just speak to the fact that they just didn't really have any ideas and didn't really have any creativity? And you know what? It was like a very back and forth game. And Palace started well.
Yeah, they did.
And even in the second half, actually, they had openings. You know, Nketiah does that brilliant bit of skill to get past Murillo on the byline. But yeah, they just seem so like, I don't know why I'm sad about it. I don't support them, but I suppose they gave us a lot of joy last year, and you know, in previous seasons.
I think there's something likeable about Palace.
Yeah, but I think they've lost it.
Yeah, maybe being
a
London club, and there's obviously a lot of Premier League sides in London, and you think there's a lot of money and there's bigger sides. There's an element of the underdog, but the players that they produce, we can name a few of them immediately. Local lads, very exciting players, and so on. I know what you mean, but. They are struggling a bit. I mean, we talk about Eze shooting and so on. He's had 32 shots this season, only behind Erling Haaland and Antoine Semenyo, which shows you. He scored one league goal. He's trying to step up, and they need him more than ever. Obviously, Elise has gone off to Bayern. But you can't rely on that. And Eddie Nketiah started the game, and he had a great effort himself in the first half, he shaved the side of the post. But with Nketiah, he's got talent, we know that. I just wonder, is he the man in a kind of a number 9 type way to lead the line? Is he going to get you, let's be realistic, 10 to 15 goals a season? Possibly. Or could we see in a year, 2 years, however many, him become a wide player, sort of a la Marcus Rashford? You know, not quite got the presence of a number 9, but got all the skills, got an eye for goal and a bit of creativity and pace and so on. And he ends up being out in one of the positions out wide. Do you see that as Nketiah's future, perhaps?
No, I don't actually, because I don't think he's good enough to do that job out wide.
Right.
I do think, though, that I certainly have a bit of sympathy for him at the moment, because it's not the same Palace that he's dropped into. You know, it's not the Palace of last year where they were much more free flowing. It feels it's more disjointed. You know, Munoz, who, you know, by and large was excellent from deep last season, is now basically the main runner on the right wing, and he can't really beat a man. And you know, when he did in that second half, he boomed across out of play when it was like, right, that's quite an important position you've got yourself in.
Well, he's also back from international break and having travelled quite a bit with Colombia, so he's perhaps not the freshest.
True, but they're just not, like, Palace just aren't as quick as they used to be. Like, I don't, like, who's Palace's fastest player? Probably Nketiah.
Yeah, he'd be one of them, yeah.
Yeah, like, they seem to have lost all the, I don't want to say joy, because, you know, you want to be more constructive than that, but essentially all the people who can carry the ball forward, who have a bit of craft about them. You know, even Eze, like, the shot number that you read out, like, he's reaching a bit, isn't he? Really? Like, he's searching for, I suppose, being a bit more impactful, and it's manifesting itself in all these shots, which aren't really that productive, to be fair. I mean, the free kick, the one, you know, you mentioned that Sells made a brilliant save from, yeah, that was great, and there were a couple of them that were pretty close, but like, it was much of a muchness. And even at the end, like, I think it was Lerma maybe in the end of the second half, was just shooting from 30 yards. It's like, wow, this is it. Like, this is all you have, really. You
mentioned Palace last season. Of course, it was towards the end of last season. I mean, when Glasner took over, it did take them a little while to get up and running. So to give them a bit of sort of encouragement, for want of a better word, this season, obviously, they've sold some key players, Elise being the obvious one, but even Anderson to Fulham. It made financial sense. I understand why they did it. But a big player with that long range of passing and so on. So they're kind of, like a lot of sides, rebuilding now and going into this season having to rethink a few things. So the slow start, Glasner, his teams tend to do that, but when they get it, as we saw last season, that they pick up the pace a bit. But with Nketiah up top, very different striker to Mateta, who was the man who was getting all the goals towards the end of last season. Mateta, more in that traditional, if you like, because we'd say in this country, traditional number 9, as what Forest have got down the other end, Chris Wood, who on another day would have scored a couple of goals. The fact of the matter is the goal he did score, Dean Henderson will be disappointed with himself. But from Wood's point of view, it was a great strike. And they looked more likely, really, because he was leading the line. It was quite a bit of a contrast between the two sides.
Yeah, I mean, having runners around him, having, I suppose, a clear idea of what what is required of him. And, I don't want to be, this is only going to come across poorly, but, so it's on me to word it better. But, he's broadly quite a limited player, but he never tries to do anything particularly, extravagant. He knows what he's good at. And that is, taking that volley on, or, that, was it against Newcastle last year? He scored that remarkable hat-trick. So, he obviously has, a bit more about him than, I suppose, what, as Luke would term, a meat and two potatoes type of striker. But he knows what he needs to do. Even in the second half, there was that great layoff to Elliot Anderson when he had his back to goal. And Anderson, by the way, was brilliant today, probably the best player on the park. And yeah, it just shows that one team has a coherent system and the other team is doesn't really. And it does make you think that did we put too much on the end of last season for Palace? Because I don't know, it feels like he might not have long left. He might beat Nuno to the door.
You mentioned Elliot Anderson, of course, playing in the midfield was very, very good. And Forest, without Morgan Gibbs-White, of course, suspended for the game. He has an injury as well, so, it may work out quite well, although obviously you're worried about the injury to the player. Missed the international window as well. Ward-Prowse, who's played a bit for Forest this season, not there because of his suspension too. So again, missing a couple of starters. I mean, Gibbs-White's been crucial for them. Of course, he's quite talismanic, you would say. And it was a good performance. The only surprising thing, it was their first home win in the season. But now they've got that monkey off their back, you would imagine them to kick on. And Forest, they've been very impressive at the back as well. It's another clean sheet for them. They've conceded 6 goals in 8 games so far in the league this season. Only Liverpool have conceded fewer. And we've talked about how airtight Liverpool have been at the back. I don't want to sound too patronising or anything, but once again, it's impressive stuff from Forest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you saw the build-up to the game, but Sky did a quite a neat package on Murillo and Milinkovic, and they were fawning over Milinkovic, and kind of understandably so, because they were like, this guy is 6'4" muscle. He is calm on the ball, and he's a unit, heads everything, and then he's next to Murillo, who's this quite flair centre back, who they're certainly if you're a Forest fan and you've come out of, I suppose, the craziness of that first season in the Premier League, you're looking at that squad, and particularly that back line, because even Olaine as well,
good player.
He's someone who's but he's so reliable now, isn't he? He's excellent going forward as well. He combines really well with Elanga on that right side, and even occasionally when he plays on the left with Hudson-Odoi. But yeah, they've got structure, haven't they? They've got a sense of what you're going to get from,
I know what you mean.
Let's say, the back 7, including the keeper, and that's that gets you through games like this, which is which you're not particularly fluent, but you still know that you're, I suppose, going to see more of the ball, got to use more of the ball, and when you've got that base, you can. They're 8th on merit, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
I know it's early in the season, but they're 8th on merit.
No, they are. Yeah, that particular position backs up the point that the league table doesn't lie. But the goalkeeper Sells again made a couple of great saves. That one against Eze, which, on one hand, I was disappointed that he actually made that save because it would have been an early contender for goal of the season. But speaking on behalf or speaking to the goalkeepers union, of course I was delighted for him to make the save because it was an absolute beauty, and he's produced some great saves. You remember that late one at Chelsea as well. So they're all chipping in, and it is incredible to see how quickly things have changed. A summer can do you the world of good, and with Crystal Palace, it's not been so good. Their summer, some of their players were, of course, on international duty. They played a varying amount of minutes. Mark Gay obviously played an awful lot of football during the summer, thrust into the limelight for England. He's a fine centre-half, we know that. Then he had all the transfer saga with Newcastle and so on. He said in the post-match against Forest, life's hard and you have to deal with it. And some of the quotes he's been coming out with, again, it just feels like that there is a struggle there. He could do with the rest, quite frankly. But, barring injury, and you wouldn't wish that upon anybody, he's not going to get it. We know that Adam Wharton has been struggling a lot. Didn't play tonight. So you do worry for Crystal Palace at this early stage of the season. And, I don't want to ask you this question, Vish, but how long until they turn back to 77-year-old Roy Hodgson?
Well, hopefully never. I mean, I was thinking this is actually quite emotive, and quite. If you're a Palace fan listening to that, and then you kind of go with the rhythm of it, and when you put into context those feelings, it's a rough time, and then you throw Roy into the mix. 77-year-old Roy Hodgson, to give him his full name.
Speaking of people who really need a rest.
Yeah. I was about to say Uncle Mark. Let Uncle Mark have a sit down. But no.
Get Grandad
Roy back. He's got to take the
back.
seat of Roy. Yeah. Up you get, Grandad. Go to the touchline. Uncle Mark needs a seat.
It's a family affair at Palace.
Yeah. The Wharton thing's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because, he's had this groin niggle that I think essentially he picked up during the Euros, yeah. And it was interesting seeing some people talking about it, Palace fans, about this weird bind where it seems that, they obviously want him to play more and recover, but he might need an operation.
Yeah.
And so they're in that weird space where they need results now, but they could do with, I suppose, preserving like a prime young asset as well, and not doing him more damage. So even that adds like a layer of complexity to the whole situation.
Well, and there's tricky decisions they have to make because, like you say, could do with some results now, but do you let's try and play the long game here. But as we know in the Premier League, especially from the manager's point of view, you're often not allowed to play the long game. So, I suppose for Palace, encouraging things are, if you try and spin it back round, is okay, they haven't won yet all season. They've had a mixed bag in terms of the quality of opponent they've been playing. But they've only just been getting pipped here and there. It's usually by the odd goal they've lost. The Liverpool game was a good example of that. The one damning thing is, of course, the amount of games they won without Michael Olise last season and so on. Very few. I think it might have only been one, something like that. So they are going to have to get over that. And I think, pains me to say this, they are going to have to control Eze a little bit more to not be so gung-ho. I mean, I could watch that man shoot from 25 yards all day, but I'm not a Palace season ticket holder. And I think after the fifth or sixth one that he's maybe put wide or something, you think, okay, come on. We have to think of a different plan B here.
That's Glasner's job, isn't it?
Well, of course, yeah. Yeah,
that's almost.
Is that not the season ticket holders? All of them. Shout louder!
Don't shh! Not again. It's 32. He's had 32 shots. One goal.
Oh,
I mean, it's easier said than done, isn't it? You've got to get over Elise, generational talent. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Well, I just think so. I'm not saying he's the problem. Clearly, I'm not saying that. It's the fact that he feels the need to shoot from distance all the time because that he feels like that's the best chance of scoring.
Well, he must have that license from Glasner.
Well,
is what I'm saying.
You would think
it
so.
might be like, right, you go and flex a bit and do what you need to do, like, be as flair as you want because we need that, and we will try and work out around you. It just doesn't work like that. We'll put Will Hughes behind you. He'll just,
Sure, and like I say,
Will
you want to see Eze playing to his strengths, and like I say, I love seeing him line them up. And my goodness, nearly scored an early contender for goal of the season against Forest. But they've got to have more up top. They have to, just quite simply. Otherwise, it will be a relegation battle.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.